All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Colton Cockrell. I'm a certified financial fiduciary and independent financial advisor with Share McKinley Group. So, I decided to take a pause and work today, just take a little 30-minute break, grab a cup of coffee. And I asked my friend Ricky Garza to join me. And we're just going to have a conversation. We want to touch up on the questions that people who have recently been laid off or been furloughed, questions that they may have towards their retirement accounts and towards health insurance, what options they have available. So, Ricky, thanks for coming out. Thanks for accepting my coffee break invite. Cheers.
Hey, brother, if anything, thank you for allowing me to join you and have this coffee break. Like you said, it's been pretty crazy, chaotic with everything that's going on, and it's awesome that you allow me to be here. Got my little coffee mug, talking nerdy to me, coming at you to take a little break, recharge the batteries, and get right back to it. So thank you again. Like you said, I am an advisor, but I'm a health insurance advisor, work for U.S. Health Advisors Health Group, and that's, United Healthcare Company, all that good stuff. So my job is just basically to help people that are laid off or in any type of situation to look at all the different plans that are available to them and really just help them out and advise them on what I would do and what would be best for them, that kind of thing. So Colton, I know earlier you said that you're, of course you're a financial advisor and things like that. So whenever it comes to, I know individuals who have been laid off and have several options when it comes to their retirement and, there's previous employers, retirement accounts being held by their previous employers. And I know for me, personally, it was a 401k before I started doing 1099. So what are some of those things out there? I know there's a lot of different numbers and acronyms, but I know you're the advisor and you're the man to ask, the expert. So the people that ask me that, what would you do? What are the different type of things out there?
So, man, you don't play around. You're jumping right into the questions. I love it.
I know that's a big question too, man, but I know you got all the answers. I'm gonna be taking notes.
Oh man, well, I hope I have all the answers. So, with a retirement account, so if you leave a previous employer and you have like we're just going to say 401ks, they're 457, 403bs. There's other types of employer sponsored plans, but we're just going to say 401k we're just going to use 401k as the word. So with the 401k, when you leave an employer, you have four options. You can leave it where it is. You can transfer it or roll it over into your new plan. You can do a rollover IRA, or you can just cash it out. So I'm going to just talk briefly about each one of those options. So if you leave it where it's at, leave it at your previous custodian, well, you can no longer make contributions to that account. Okay, you just can't. Now, it could potentially be less expensive keeping it there. However, sometimes when you leave that plan, so if you're no longer employed, you may be incurring some additional admin expenses potentially. That's a maybe. Make sure you talk to your plan sponsor and the HR department about that, just so you can get a list of fees and expenses that you may incur by keeping it with the company. Now, a negative is you have limited options. So with these employer-sponsored plans with 401ks, you may have 20 to 30 options you can choose from, right? So that's not that great of a thing. But the one benefit as well is that you'll have creditor protection through ERISA. So, if you get sued or something like that, typically your 401k is protected from creditors. Now let's talk about rolling over your plan to a new 401k or to your new employer. So first and foremost, you need to see if this is allowed. Some companies don't allow you to roll over your 401k into a new plan. So that's something you definitely want to talk to your new plan sponsor in your HR department about to see if that's available. And you have to make sure that you're eligible to contribute to a 401k before you can do that. So just like keeping your plan where it currently is, you're limited to your investment options. Again, 20 to 30 options. So you don't have a lot of choices, right? And you want to be diversified. You want a lot of variety. So you don't have a lot of options. So the third option, cashing it out. Unless you need the money, that's the only time you'll ever do that. And if you do need the money, there might be some other avenues, because if you cash that out, it's going to be 100% taxable. If it's a traditional 401k, 100% taxable, you really don't want to take that tax burden, okay? Unless, again, you absolutely have to. And the final option is rolling it over to an IRA. Now, this is where you can do it yourself, of course, or you can work with a financial advisor. So the pros are that a financial advisor can come along and they can manage that portfolio for you. You're not having to do that. You can have an expert who is making decisions on your behalf, all right? Now, make sure, I want to say, you work with a financial advisor you trust if you want to work with somebody. That is the number one thing whenever you're finding a financial advisor. The other thing is your options. You have a ton of investment options. You're not limited like you are with a employer-sponsored plan. So that's another huge benefit. And then also asset consolidation. So if you already have an IRA or you have a few 401ks from other companies, you can roll them all together into one account so you have all your assets in one place. So that's also important. Plus, if you're working with a financial advisor, you want him to be in control of as much of your assets as possible so that he can plan and you can plan appropriately. So you just have more control. So I'm not saying rollover IRAs are the best. It just depends on your situation and what you're trying to do. So whichever option you make sure you're consulting with somebody that has an idea, just so you can make the best decision and do what is in your best interest. That's a great question, Ricky. And let me turn that around to you. So if someone gets laid off or someone, they get furloughed, what options do they have with their health insurance? Because, they're going to lose their health insurance if they're no longer employed. So how does that work?
Yeah, so there's several different options out there whenever it comes to losing health insurance and trying to look in the marketplace, or Obamacare options, whatever you want to call it. But the biggest word out there that I hear all the time that scares me to death is the word COBRA. And no, I'm not talking about snakes. So honestly though, whenever it comes to people that have been employed for a company for longer than typically, 18 months or so, they're offered a severance package, if you will, of insurance benefits, and that's COBRA. And so, if you've lost job-based health insurance, you have two options. You can either replace it with another insurance option, which, like I said, is marketplace, or possibly get a new employer that has insurance, or sign up for COBRA. So whenever it comes to the health insurance for that, it's known as the Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act. So that's why they abbreviated into COBRA, because that's a pretty complicated, word to say over and over and over. So whenever it comes to COBRA though, let's say that your employer pays for 50 to 100% of it, right? So you get your vision, you get your dental, you get your well woman's checks, your health checks, all that good stuff, doctor visits are covered. Now, whenever you leave that employer, if you're let go, furloughed or laid off, then they're going to offer you COBRA. Well, now they're no longer covering 50 to 100% of that, that insurance plan, unfortunately. So that's whenever, it's good to get in touch with someone like me, a health advisor, where you say, hey, this is what they're offering me. I had a client just yesterday that was being offered COBRA for $750 a month. The guy's only 24 years old, for health insurance, no vision, no dental. And to me, I was like, that's scary, man. So let's see what we can do. I showed him all the available options. There's private insurance options, there's marketplace insurance options. So me being an advisor, and I'm sure you do the same, is, we kind of show them those options, walk them through those options in detail, and one, make sure what's best for them and for me, and two, for you as well, is making sure it's best for them in that time that they need it. And for me, being health insurance. So, I mean, whenever it comes to different things like that, it just kind of varies on what they want, what they're comfortable with, stuff like that. So with, that was a really good question, Colton. I really do appreciate that one. But with the CARES Act coming out, I know that there's temporary changes that have been made into the retirement accounts under the CARES Act, correct? Or am I saying that right? Or is that something that kind of changed? Because I also get that question a lot as well. If you could touch some base on that, that'd be awesome.
Okay, yeah, I definitely can. And I do want to real quick back up to the importance of working with an advisor in any situation like that. A tax advisor, a health advisor, financial advisor, all these advisors. And again, make sure you trust them. Make sure that you can work with them, because again, there's so much benefit. And a lot of the time, a lot of that stuff, some questions about what do I do with my 401k? What do I do with health insurance? It's free advice. I mean, they're giving it to you. You're not having to pay to sit down with them. Now, not everyone, but some people. So it's important to definitely consult with an advisor. So the CARES Act, man, there's a lot of stuff that has changed with the CARES Act. So really, and temporary changes. So first and foremost, if you're needing, and again, make sure you consult with a financial advisor and see if there's other options available to you. But what they're allowing you to do, if you're under 59 and a half, both for your IRAs and your 401ks, you can actually tap into some of that money without being hit with the 59 and a half, 10% penalty. And so you're able to pull out up to $100,000. And that's a combined amount from your accounts. Now, granted, they are giving you some leeway because it is 100% taxable. So you can either spread that tax liability out for a 3-year period, or you can repay that amount within a 3-year period. So the only thing is, with the market being somewhat down, you really want to make sure that you're participating in this recovery. However, if it's a necessity, you need the money, I mean, by all means. Some other changes that could affect people and really help them, just as far as a cash flow or having cash available and on hand, is the government actually has suspended federal credit or federal student loans. So up until September 30th, you do not have to make any payments on your federal student loans, and there's no interest incurring. Now, you can pay them if you want. You can continue making your payments, but if you need some money, that might be a great way to use that just to cover any needs that you may have before dipping into retirement. Also, talking to your loan providers, whether it's your mortgage or your auto, seeing if there's a way to defer payments for 3 months. I'm not talking about, you got to be careful here and make sure you talk to your loan provider. Some people, you can defer payments for 3 months and then you owe that entire 3 months that third month. You don't want that. You want to make sure everything you do is deferred until the end of that loan. So see if you can free up some cash flow there as well by not making any auto or mortgage payments for 3-6 months. And again, talk to your loan provider and see if that's something that they can work with you. They're probably not going to advertise it, but they may allow it. So it's definitely worth the conversation. So that's really in a nutshell. Oh, and then last thing, 401k providers. You can also take a loan from a 401k. Again, you still have to be employed with your at the company that you work for that is holding the 401k to be able to take a loan, but you can now take up to $100,000 or 100% of your 401k, whichever's less, as a loan. So that's really kind of in a nutshell. That's like the very on the surface answer, because there's a lot more in-depth stuff with the CARES Act. But yeah, that's a great question though.
No, that was awesome. Thank you.
No problem. And so you touched on this a little bit by talking about people's options once they leave their employer. So talk to me about private versus corporate health insurance.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a really good question. I'm glad you remember that I brought up the private insurance. I feel so special. But no, honestly, whenever it comes to corporate insurance versus private insurance, corporate, of course, you got your big corporations, Walmart, things like that, HEB, Kroger, they have incredible benefits packages. So whenever it comes to them getting laid off and stuff, they're typically looking at the Cobra options. And I've seen Cobra options in the thousands, and then I've seen Cobra options down to $40 a month. Each situation's a little bit different, but one thing that never changes that's out there is known as private insurance options. And what that means, unlike Obamacare or marketplace options where it's only available from typically November to December, which is, my favorite time of year, of course, is open enrollment. But whenever it comes to being outside of that, private insurance options, they can get on and off at any time throughout the year. So it's not like corporate insurance where it's super restrictive. You have to be, a part of this company for 90 days before we even offer you a health insurance package. With private insurance, you can start it, you can end it whenever you want. There's no restrictions on that. There's what we like to call guaranteed issue options, because that's also a question I get a lot is someone says, oh, well, I have pre-existing conditions. Not a problem. Let's look at what's out there. As an advisor, I'm going to definitely look at what's out there for you. And typically I always try to go with private insurance options because the ball is more in their court, if you will. They're not being told what their deductible is. They're not being told what certain things are. We can actually customize that plan to fit that client, to fit that person. And like you said earlier, my mission of hope is truly just helping other people every day. So, whenever it comes to private versus corporate, of course, like you said, there's a whole nother can of worms with that whenever it comes in to go into detail, but definitely want to refer, people more towards the private insurance, sector of it, because private insurance as well, a lot of people don't know this, but they can actually write things off on their taxes, which is huge, premiums, Band-Aids, Tylenol, Advil, and a lot of people are unaware of that. So as an advisor, that's what I love doing, is just educating people and teaching them things like that. So that was a really good question, man. I appreciate that one. But all right, so the short and the sweet of it, Colton, I know I've been throwing a lot of oddball questions at you, right? But what is the importance of having a financial plan? Not only for me, but anybody else that's out there, especially right now with things that are going on right now.
No, okay. All right. So having a financial plan, so it's extremely beneficial. I mean, having a plan, period. I love the quote, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So you definitely want to have a roadmap. You wouldn't just jump in a vehicle, say, hey, I'm going to go to California and start driving. Granted, you can get there eventually, but you want to know what the best route is. So having a financial plan is significant to your success, especially if you're closer to retirement. So for example, like we're talking about getting laid off, if you've recently lost your job, and you're in your 50s, early 60s, oh my goodness, it is critical. You want to make sure that first, all the goals that you have in retirement, to see what you have saved up so far, look at Social Security, any pension income, anything like that, to see, well, can I, maybe if I just reduce my goals, can I retire now, or do I need to go back to work? And if I do, how long do I need to work? So having a plan is so important. And I really try to stress this for people because people that come and see me, if they're close to retirement, we are putting together a financial plan because we want to make sure that what we suggest and how we invest, we want to make sure that we're meeting the goals. Like that's the whole point. You can't invest unless you know what someone's trying to do, you know? So that's that's short and sweet. Having a financial plan is extremely important. And there's so much more that goes into it, like consulting with a estate planner, with a tax advisor, because it's also looking at the estate, looking at tax planning. There's so many components of that. So having a financial plan, extremely important. That's a great question too, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. So whenever, I know you said 50 to 60, if someone's getting close to retirement and things like that, but I mean, is there, could you put a 21-year-old on a financial plan, or is that something that you like to wait till a certain age or a certain income or something like that?
So you could if they wanted to. It may not be necessary. What I like to, if you're going to retire in the next 5-10 years, that's really when you want to start looking at it. Just because if you're making income and you're accumulating money and you're putting it away and saving it, whenever you're saying to yourself, you know what, I want to retire when I'm 55, 65, that's when you start making changes. Now you can do it whenever you want. It's just more beneficial as you're closer to retirement, because that's when it counts the most to see if your goals match up with your assets.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you.
And so, yeah, let me ask you this. So, all my 401k, 457, 403bs, letters, all these numbers. Tell me, kind of give me differentiate a PPO versus an HMO for me.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I hear that a lot. So people are like, "Oh, I loved my HMO, I loved my PPO." Then I ask them, "Hey, do you even know what that means? Like what that coverage was?" Nope, they just know they loved it. So that's a really good question. I mean, there's actually 3 different types out there. And like you said, there's always acronyms, right? So there's 3 types out there. There's EPO, there's HMO, and then there's PPO. And the way that works is it's all based off of a network, if you will, right? So the EPO is the first option, which I always try to steer people away from. If you're currently on an EPO or know someone who's on an EPO plan, definitely get in touch with me. And that stands for an exclusive provider organization. That's a bare minimum network, which means if you go outside of network, no matter what, they're not going to cover you, which is really scary whenever it comes to health insurance. Now there's HMOs, which are health maintenance organizations. Those are huge. And what I mean by that is that the network opens up a little bit more to where if you need to go see a certain specialist, a certain doctor, they're going to allow you to see that doctor, because as long as it's in network, they're going to honor that insurance discount. And then of course there's the PPO, which is preferred provider organization. And I know that's a lot, but whenever it comes to PPOs, they like to pride themselves in any hospital, any doctor nationwide. So a lot of HMOs, they're super restrictive on it. As soon as you leave state lines, you're no longer covered, because that's within their network. PPO, their network is huge, so it goes EPO, HMO, and then PPO, as far as how the marketing goes. So whenever it comes to HMO versus PPO, hands down, I would always go with a PPO, but not all HMOs are bad. I mean, if you don't travel a lot, if you don't plan on leaving the state of Texas or whatever state you're in a lot, hey, by all means, let's find you a good HMO. But if you do travel a lot, or you do see yourself traveling in the future, let's look at some PPO options for you as well. So that's a really good question. But like I said, all it really comes down to is the network and what network you feel comfortable with. So that was a really good question. I appreciate that.
You saying that just as we're going through this, because again, we're really trying to educate people who have recently lost their jobs. And it's important to talk to an advisor, right? To talk to a financial advisor, to talk to a health advisor, and figure out, hey, what are my options? Ricky has kind of talked about HMO, PPO, which are private health insurance or private plans, right? And so just trying to give you just general education. Reach out to somebody that you trust. Reach out to an advisor that you trust and ask these questions. What can I do with my 401k? What can I do with my health insurance? I was offered Cobra, because you really want to make sure you know exactly what you're doing. All right. Because I know this is an emotional time. And my heart goes out for people. I have clients who have family members that have lost their job, and I hate hearing that. Like that, it's horrible. I have a client actually that just lost his job. And I just hate hearing that. And so what I want to do now, Ricky, I want to ask you this. Tell me, whenever you are interviewing a health advisor, so you know that you need to talk to somebody and get some advice, and you're vetting X amount of health advisors, what are good questions that people need to ask them before they really decide to move forward with them?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, I mean, that speaks levels of what advisors do. And like you said, find someone that you trust, find someone that you know. And my mission's the same as yours, and that's helping other people every day, no matter which way we can. If we end up, helping that client out, hey, great. If we don't, at least we educated them. And that's what's huge. So the first question that I would say to anyone that does get in touch with a health advisor is, what are my options? What are my options? I mean, if they try to limit you to marketplace only, no, there's plenty of other options out there. So make sure you get with a good advisor. Always ask him, what are my options? Whenever it comes to that, what's my deductible? A lot of people love their plan, but they're really unaware of their deductible, especially in a time right now. They're being honestly used and abused. And it's so sad to see clients that really don't know what they're doing. They just go online, they put in, health insurance, and then they get hit up by a million insurance agents trying to, make a profit off of them. And that's horrible. I have nightmares about that. I really do. So whenever it comes to things like that. So that would definitely be my first question, is what are my options? And make sure they walk you through those options, educate you with those options. And in the end, don't sign anything that you're not comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with that plan, don't sign up for it. And even if you don't go with me personally, find someone else and, just kind of get those options. And then you can contact me and say, hey, this is what this person recommended. It's always good to get a second opinion as well. So whenever it comes to a time like this, that's always the biggest question. What are all of my options? Look at all of those options and be educated in those options. So Colton, for you, whenever it comes to retirement and things like that, I know you kind of touched up on that a lot earlier, but whenever it comes to someone advising or trying to get, some financial advice, same question. I mean, what are the questions that you would advise for them to have?
I mean, there's a list, but I'll just leave it to top three. So first and foremost, are you a fiduciary? Right? That's a very important question. There's two standards that advisors work under. There's the suitability standard and the fiduciary standard. If I'm a advisor who is working under a suitability standard, if I have two products that I'm recommending to you because we went through a time horizon, we went through a risk tolerance, and I know that both of these are suitable, well, I don't have to tell you that one product pays me more than the other one, right? So suitability, you want to make sure you're working with the fiduciary, because the fiduciary is going to have to go that extra step and say, hey, listen, I would recommend both of these, but I want to let you know, A pays me X amount, whereas B pays me a little less. It pays me this amount. So a fiduciary has to be transparent in how they get paid. So working with fiduciary is critical. Second is, how do you get paid, right? Advisors get paid either commission or fee-based. So commission, real quick, basically if you have X amount of dollars, there's typically going to be a upfront commission that an advisor gets if he's working with A shares with mutual funds, and then he doesn't see anything else for the rest of the relationship, unless he recommends another fund family down the road where he would generate a new commission. So you can see there is potentially some some risk there, right? Especially if you don't trust your advisor. Whereas in a fee-based relationship, same thing, X amount of dollars, and they get a percentage of the portfolio. Let's say it's 1%. So if you're working with a greedy advisor, if he's going to want to make as much money as possible, he's going to want to grow your portfolio as much as possible, right? So there's really not a negative position there. Granted, don't work with a crooked advisor, period. Make sure you trust the person that you work with. Make sure you trust them. And then last question I'd ask them is really investment methodology, or are you a holistic financial advisor? Holistic's a word that advisors throw around all over the place. A holistic financial advisor is going to sit down. They're going to look at your investments. Not only that, they're going to work with your attorney. They're going to work with your CPA or tax preparer, see how they can do some tax planning. Look at estate planning, see if that's something that you need or you're lacking. Look at long-term care insurance, life insurance, all these types of insurances that you potentially may need. Now, don't let them just throw everything and sell it all to you. Let them educate you on what the importance is of them, and see if it makes sense for you to do that, and when's like the best time to buy and stuff like that. So a holistic financial advisor is looking at the entire financial picture. So again, are you a fiduciary? How do you get paid? And are you a holistic financial advisor? Okay, and make sure you do some research on that as well, so that they don't blow smoke. But out of everything, health advisor, a financial advisor, make sure you work with someone that you can trust, that you want to build a relationship with, and that you can just wake up knowing that you're taken care of. Okay, that's my greatest advice, is working with somebody that you trust.
Yeah, I love that. So whenever it comes to, all the different things out there, I know you get hit up with a million different types of questions. I've touched up on, I want to say 3 or 4 good questions that I get a lot. So thank you so much, man. I took down some really good notes, got to enjoy some good coffee with you. But real quick though, for anyone else that's interested in MediShare, plans, please get in touch with me. Those are nightmarish plans. Whenever you get your card in the mail, it literally says on the card, this is not health insurance. So if you're on a Medishare plan, or you know someone out there, or even if you cold know somebody on a Medishare plan, please get them in touch with me. Also, if someone's getting laid off and they're being offered to be put on their spouse's insurance, but it's going to cost an arm and a leg to do it, please get in touch with me. That's another huge thing right now. So, you know, if my wife got laid off and she was going to be on my insurance, let's say if I was still out in the oil field, which I'm not, thank God, but you know, my heart's out to the people that are, you know, because that's a huge industry that's taking a huge hit right now. But, you know, it was going to cost $850 a month to add my wife to our plan, and she's not even 30 years old. That's wild. So definitely we're in a way better place, you know, thank God, we're truly blessed, you know, things like that. But if you are laid off and you're looking at being added to your spouse's coverage and it's going to cost you to do that, please get in touch with me, because I would love to look at options for you and see what we can do to save you some money on your premium. So
Absolutely. And Ricky, again, thanks for joining me for this little 30-minute segment. I always appreciate having you around. And really, everyone watching this video, if you know a loved one, a friend that have been personally affected by losing their job, getting laid off, share the video with them. Again, we're not here to solicit. We're here to educate people and let them know what's going on. That's what it's about in times like this, is education. So thanks for watching, Ricky. Again, thanks for stopping by, and I look forward to future conversations with you and some more coffee. Maybe not virtual. Maybe we can actually be in person. We'll see what happens.
hey, that's what I'm talking about. You picked the place, man. I'm buying. So that'll be awesome to finally get to see you in person. It's been too long, but I really do appreciate your time. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you.
Absolutely, Ricky. I'll see you later. And thank you for watching, everyone.